This is a web design submitted by one of my viewers, and in this video we're going to take a look at it, analyze it, and maybe even redesign it a little bit. So what I think is good about this design is the white space, meaning just empty space in general. What I like is that we're using a lot of empty space to create some kind of a visual story, and it is not cluttered. The design elements have enough space to breathe. It's very simple, so I think that's good. What I think this design is lacking is overall feeling of conciseness, let's say, right? So these elements are spread apart with very little logic to back these decisions up, right? And also the overall design is huge. So let me just zoom in to 100%. And this is the real size. So as you can see, for those of you who are familiar with the Figma interface, you realize how huge these fonts are. So using 33 for body text, that's way too much. And the same with using 96 for headlines in this layout. So first of all, I think we should be using something around 1440 or like 1600 for the website in terms of width, maybe, right? So let's just use a new frame. Let's say redesigned. And with this new frame, let's put some guidelines in place. Why don't I create a new layout grid? And it's going to be columns. It's going to be 12 columns. It is going to be center, and the width of these columns is going to be 74 with the getter 24. That's the setup that I'm using. You can use any, but in my view, using a content width, like a container width of about 1200 or 1300 even works best, I think. So with that out of the way, I would just reuse this photo because I like this photo. We could use that for our hero area. I'm gonna hide the guides. I also like the font pop-ins, so why don't I just duplicate this right away? And I am going to make sure it is within the layout grid, which is going to be just, as you can see, let me actually make this more prominent. Let's set the opacity to 16. Yeah, so somewhere around here. In terms of height or cropping of the text, I would just go to typography, and in vertical trim, I'm gonna do this so that it's kind of trims whatever we have here. And also, as you can see, there is an extra line of text, I think, or at the very least, it's set to fixed size, and we want to do auto width. All right, we want to do auto width. So I think that works. For the logo, I think that's kind of a given. So I'm just going to copy this, right? Maybe make this a little bit smaller. Let's go for 60. And this, let's again trim it. Make it, I don't know, like 32, make this even smaller. And for the purpose of like future use, let me just duplicate this, group it, and turn into a component. This is going to be our logo. So let's rename this to logo. I'm using Command R, and then I'm going to use an instance of this and place it right here. I think we could use the black background for the entire hero section, so I don't think we don't have to use this stripe over here. I will also reuse these menu items, so let's say about, and then this is going to be like, I don't know what, 20, duplicate and duplicate, and then I'm going to do Shift A on all of these and then do 40. What I forgot to mention is with this design, what I see with a lot of designs from less experienced designers is that there isn't auto layout used to the fullest extent possible. So for example, there's a huge missed opportunity in making this all fall into an auto layout. For example, let's start with the header menu. I'm going to make them capitalized, and I'm going to do work and then contact, right? This is going to be a menu items container, and I'm going to select this, Shift A, and this is going to be header, all right? And this header is going to be actually nested inside another auto layout. And this auto layout is going to be called header. And the one inside, actually, that's going to be header container. So header container, right? What I'm going to do with this header is then drag it out to the sides. But at the same time, I want this header container to be at maximum the width of the grid, which is going to be 1152. So to achieve that, I'm going to, first of all, finish dragging this to the sides again, to the top, and then remove the padding, right? And I'm going to select the header container, go to width, and I'm going to add a maximum width of 1152. This is going to ensure that it's now no wider than 1152, while also being responsive at the same time. So it's pretty nice. Let's align this to the center, and there we go. That's way better. So what we have now is basically like a component that we can now reuse. It's not a component yet, but you get my point. We have something we can reuse, and it's also flexible in a way, right? So if you want to do designs that are easy to manage, you want to think about making stuff scalable, flexible, and responsive, even though you don't have to. It's always better to do that, because in the future, you maybe want to design for tablets, smaller resolutions, and in that case, we can just do this. And yeah, it's easier to, it just makes stuff simpler for you down the road. So, and we could use this space somehow to, let's say, do this. We're just going to copy this, right? We don't just take photos. We create art. I think that's a pretty nice slogan. That's a pretty nice tagline. So why don't I make this, add a full stop to highlight, the message, let's say. With pop-ins, I'm going to go for the first part of the slogan of the catchphrase. I'm going to go to regular, and I'm going to make this way smaller, like 32 maybe, right? And let's think about how we could lay this out. Maybe the color could be slightly darker than white, so like light gray. Maybe should it be over here? I don't know. Should it maybe be arranged like this? Let's try a couple combination and let's see. Maybe over here. I'm not so sure about that. What I think is best is just do this. That's what I think is the best option, to be honest. Right? Let's see. We don't just take photos, we create art. It's pretty nice. So what I'm also doing here is kind of changing the information hierarchy so that one of the first things the user sees is actually this claim over here, which is exactly what I want. This is very valuable real estate when it comes to website design, because it's the landing page of your website, and the first thing people are going to see is stuff that goes from the top and from the left, so kind of in like an F pattern. So we want to put the most important stuff first, let's say, right? And now for the button. Or actually, wait, before we do that, there's this highlight that we may want to use to highlight the word art. I think this is pretty good. I like this little sketched line, and maybe we could make it, a bit more prominent, and maybe, just maybe, we could make it a bit more transparent, translucent, to just, I don't know, there's something about this, that feels more natural. You don't want to steal too much of the focus from the actual headline, right? And so what I think we could do next is actually placing this copy about us somewhere around here, and then putting the button right below that to just make it more concise. So I am going to copy this element, reduce the size to about 18, and then just copy this text. So Photic is a studio where you can blah, 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 and so on, right? So let's go with 160% in terms of line height. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, I like that. Let's make sure it goes well into the grid. Let's make this 4 columns wide, or 5 maybe 5. I think that works too. Or actually no, 4. And now we need to add the button. So I'm just going to duplicate this and to learn more with auto width, then Shift A, fill, have a white background, 0 in terms of the, or black in terms of the color. I'm going to make this bold and I'm going to increase the paddings to like 16, maybe 24 on the width and around the corners a little bit to make it a bit more friendly, right? What I also think could be done here is this photo ending right outside of the grid system and leaving a little bit of space on both sides is a bit awkward. So I think we could just expand it a little bit to make it go beyond the screen edges, which I think makes it a bit more interesting and adds, I think, more depth. I think that looks really cool. Fortunately, this photo is a bit blurry, but it doesn't mind for the purpose of this redesign. Let's just deal with this anyway. Let's make this button a bit larger actually, right? A bit more rounded. Yep, that's pretty cool. So the next thing we could do, I think, is taking these, services that this agency offers, and we could maybe put it over here. Let's try that. Or take these. So it's the first icon, second and third. And let's actually shrink this to 50%. And let's do some accompanying headlines. So that's going to be photography, videography, and design, right? Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create containers for these icons, and I am going to make these containers 32 pixels, right? Or maybe 40. Let's do 40. I'm going to do icon 1 as the name on the first one. Put the camera logo inside this frame, center it, and let's just add a background so that it's better visible, noticeable. And I'm going to make sure this is aligned to center and center, and then we can work with the frame size without affecting what's inside, right? I think that works well. Let's just duplicate this, remove this, and paste this in, right? Again, center for the frame so that we can change the size of the frame. And final one is design. Let me do the same. Maybe shrink this icon a little bit to about this size. Yeah, I think that's about right. Why don't we make this rounded? Let's try making this rounded. Maybe increasing the size to 80. Let's see how that looks. And we could arrange these elements like this, which again, let's actually use auto layout. So Shift A, and Shift A. Let's go with 32 on all of them in terms of spacing. Let's make sure all of these are set to hug contents and the text is set to hug as well. And then let's make another auto layout on top of these, and let's make sure these ones are actually fixed, right? So let's go for 80, fixed, yes, and fixed, yes, brilliant. Okay, let's do the spacing of 48. Maybe on the nested auto layout, let's do 24 so that we have good information hierarchy. Let's maybe play around with the spacing of this. Let's do vertically. No. And let's add some headlines. Why don't I duplicate this and go for 32 again, 32. Let's go about us and then what we offer, right? What we offer. Awesome. Let's do another auto layout. 48, that works. Auto layout 48, brilliant. And let's align these to the top. In an ideal world, I would make everything auto layout, but since we are designing just this little part, I think that's more than enough. But usually you should aim to use auto layout as much as possible because it makes your designs easier to manage for you and for other designers or developers. So let's just rename these layers. It's always a good practice to name your layers, again, for the same reasons as to why you want to do auto layout, what we offer. Brilliant. And instead of learn more, let's say see our work instead, right? See our work, because that's going to be the next section that follows. And let's maybe add a little arrow. Why don't we add a little arrow? That's going to be like 20. It's going to be black and right next to this. Let's increase the spacing of this button, and let's decrease the height of the icon, right? I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. Yep, I think that works. So although I like how this design is, has a lot of space and space to breathe, I think it's also good to make it concise enough to be actually usable and digestible, right? So I really like the idea with the camera. I think it's an awesome idea. So all the credits for that idea goes to the author of this design, which actually I don't know who that is because they have submitted this design anonymously, which is totally fine. And if you are interested in me redesigning and or analyzing your designs, definitely go check the link in the description where you can submit your designs, where I can take a look at it in a similar fashion as this one, right? So, and I think I'm gonna keep the rest of the page for future videos. So let's just finalize a little bit here. Let's just shrink this a little bit. Let's just make a placeholder for future content. Maybe let's do like a darker gray, like a gradient maybe, right? Where this one is going to be transparent. Let's just move it over here to just symbolize that there's going to be something upcoming soon, right? And I think this button could be a bit bigger. So let's see what we can do. I think it could be actually a bit more transparent, let's say. I think it could be like this maybe with, of course, then white. Oops, accidentally added a stroke to my text. So like this maybe. Maybe this can be white on hover, which is something you then want to define on the side, like in terms of an interactive component maybe, right? Or maybe we could do like 2 CTAs. We could do 2 CTAs. Actually, that would be a good idea. Let's do 2 CTAs, and this one could say reach out to us, right? So that if the user is immediately sold, immediately impressed, they can just be like, I want to work with those people. Let me just reach out to them as quickly as possible, right? Let's switch this over to fill so that they are the same height. And it could be placed somewhere around here. Maybe these buttons could be a bit narrower, let's say. Or at the very least, I think this could be aligned to the 5 columns, both of these elements. Even though it doesn't appear like it. Yeah, what do you think? Or we could actually make this really bold and we could go for something like this, right? So make these buttons full width. Also a possibility. A bit unconventional, I would say, but also I think I kind of like that, right? And that's what design is all about, experimentation. So let's just go with this. Let's just, we have alignment here. This goes to the full width. We have alignment there. Everything falls nicely into the grid system we have created. I think this is acceptable. Yeah, let's just go with this. Sometimes you discover cool layouts by accident. This might be one of those cases, right? So let's just compare side by side. I think there's just too few information for it to take this much space. I think this is better. In terms of what would sell best, I think we could even switch the order of these call to actions. So it could actually be reach out to us first, and this would be, see our work. So see our work, reach out to us, right? So the ultimate goal of this website is to get leads, get potential customers, and I think therefore the CTAs need to reflect that. So yeah, why not? So again, if you want me to take a look at your work, check the link in the description, submit your designs, and your design may end up being featured in one of my upcoming videos. So I hope you like this new format. If you did, I would appreciate you leaving a like or a comment. If you didn't like this redesign, also let me know. Everything is a valuable feedback as long as it is constructive. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will see you in the next one.